Welcome to the St. Louis Syndicate. I'm Nate, he's Brandon, and we are here with you for your picks for Survivor, your picks for the Super Contest, anything you want information on, we got it for you this week, guys. Hope you're having a great week. We had a great week last week. Actually, check that. Brandon had a great week last week. He hit almost all of his picks, still maintains the lead in the Ben Harper. Missed it by just a smidge, Brandon, to jump this thing out of reach.
Yeah. Pitt, Louisville really hosed me. They got one extra touchdown, the difference between the over and the under there. And ruined a couple of parlays. So, we do what we can. We're going to reload. We're going to take another run at it this week. So, kind of have a limited week this week.
Yeah.
And not nearly as many fun college games sitting out there to kind of debate and make picks on.
Yeah, not much. What are you thinking in the Bama Vandy game?
I think I'm going to lay the points with Bama. I think, Vandy has obviously been playing really well, but I find it hard to believe that they are not going to be motivated to cover this week after what happened last year. So that's just kind of getting me to go ahead and lay that hook.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I really think that the last year mark is going to play a lot into this, a lot more than any other normal contest would. And that's the beauty of college sports, right? Is that these kids remember this stuff, and these coaches don't let it go. In the NFL, right? The Bills play the Patriots twice a year. They just they want to beat them, but they don't hate them, and they don't hate the loss to them as much as you would if you're Alabama and Vandy.
Right. No, it's a much bigger impact when the game ends. 60,000 people tear the goalpost down and walk them across town and throw them in the river.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. That is a beautiful thing. The next week, Bama comes to Mizzou, M-I-Z. I suspect Bama's going to be favored in that one as well.
Yeah, I would assume so.
But I'm going to be more inclined to take the home dog in that one, those M-I-Z Tigers.
Yeah, I really feel like we've got an interesting situation worked out here.
Yeah.
The look ahead, it looks like, is right around 6.5 right now. And that seems like enough points that if Mizzou can't steal a game, they should be able to keep it close. I feel like we've been flirting with this for years now.
Yes.
You almost beaten Georgia, 2 years ago? Like, I think that this is that prime time now that we have this quarterback running back duo. And we get this set up. We get the bye week going into the game. So they really get to kind of focus. Yeah, I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, I'm fired up. Now, I'm going to be in Florida visiting Ryan. So I'll be at a bar in on the beach watching that game. My kids will be at the game. They're gonna have a good time. So they'll be supporting the black and the gold. But you guys remember Ryan from last year? He jumped on. He was a guest speaker on the podcast.
Yeah.
We'll be down there hanging out with him. He turns 50, so we're celebrating his 50th.
Oh, that's a great time.
Yeah, so we'll have a good time with that. But all that being said, college football's a little slow on the picks this week, but there's a lot of NFL action going on, Brandon.
Oh, yeah.
We've got our Super Contest picks lined up. We're just a few points out of the top spot. We've been talking about it before we got in here. A lot of great games on the slate. What about that Thursday night matchup? The Rams and the 49ers. There's a ton of injuries hanging out over in San Francisco. Do you think it'll matter?
I do. That number just keeps moving up. But when we started talking, it was at 7.5. The consensus is now up to 8.5. In most of the contests, we locked around 3.5. Which means that either people are dummying up the line to bet it back the other direction, or the public has really looked at this along with the big money guys and said, we're really going to have this one-way action on here. And it feels like even at full strength, LA has an upper hand being at home. McVay figures out ways to make this work in this matchup. And when you stretch this all the way out through the 7, this just seems like a slam dunk. There's always Thursday night magic, but this one feels so straightforward this week.
Yeah, I hate the interdivision play. I always say, usually that 3 points is a big deal for the divisions. In this
Yeah.
particular instance, the injuries make a difference. So we're gonna roll with that.
Yeah.
Chargers. The Chargers. We're gonna stay in LA.
Yeah.
Another big one for the cross country traveling Commanders. They gonna get Jaden Daniels back this week?
It sounds like I heard on one podcast today that the reporting was last Saturday. He said that was the first date he felt, I guess, quote unquote, 100% or better or whatever. And they held him out and he got another week. And so even though, he's still on the injury report, it seems like they're leaning that direction, though it sounds like McLaurin isn't going to go. And again, when I stare at that, even if those guys are there and 100% and there weren't injuries, I think the Chargers have I don't know what happened last week.
Yeah.
I watched that game twice.
Yeah.
There was some fluky stuff. Dart figured out a way to get it done. The defense stood up. I don't see any reason that the Chargers don't go back to being who they were week 1, 2, and 3 when they get to go back home and get situated. And, the contest lines, most of them locked at 2.5. We're up to 3. I think we probably get up over 3, even if Daniels is marked in.
Yeah.
And I think that we're going to have some CLV here with the other LA team.
Yeah. I like the Chargers here. I think the 2.5 is the right spot. I think it's the play, hands down. It's totally a numbers
Yeah.
play for me. I think that these two teams, if you look at them on paper and in the power rankings, they're pretty evenly matched. On a neutral field, I really do not feel like there would be much. It might be a pick 'em, which means that the Washington traveling across the country, home field advantage isn't quite the same for the Chargers as most teams. But I'm going to give the
No.
distance a check, and I'm going to give the Harbaugh a check that he's going to have these guys ready to play ball. And
Yeah.
while I talk about crossing the country, one of the teams that we're looking at, and we're not calling it a play of the week, is Tampa, traveling all the way
Yeah.
up to Seattle. It does take an impact because last week the Chargers traveled all the way across the country to play the Giants. Now, I believe that was an early game, if I'm not
It
mistaken.
was. Yeah.
When
It was a noon
you've got to
game.
travel and you get the early slate, it's a little bit different. Tampa going up to Seattle is going to be in the late slot, so that won't be as bad for the Bucks. But just think about those games as you're going. These teams that have to travel across the country back and forth, it wears on you. And I know travel's 5-6 hours now, but it's not sleeping in your bed. It's staying in a different place. It's
Yeah.
3
And
different
it's the
time zones.
accumulation, week after week after week, especially when you have some of these back to back where it's, hey, we're going to go here and then we're going to come back and then we're going to go there and then we're going to come back. And, mathematically, it's shown that there's an impact, as much as you can go, hey, we're sitting on a private jet going across, what's the big deal? We're going to a nice hotel. It's impacting them. So that's the reality when it comes down to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, our last pick that we like this week, and we're both on it pretty strong, is Kansas City -3.5 at Jacksonville on Monday night. We're giving up the hook this time. Normally, we're proponents of taking the hook. We're giving it up this time. Any particular reason you've got that the hook should be given?
I think this is a situation where Spagnuolo gets to stretch out his legs again.
Yeah.
That we have the same sort of situation where, yeah, they have to go on the road now. Jacksonville doesn't have necessarily a wild home field advantage like the Chiefs were able to lean on at their stadium last week. But part of what got that game out of hand was they were able to stop the run. Derrick Henry couldn't get his legs under him. They got up by a couple of scores, and then they were able to just throw the house at Lamar. And I think that with their run defense, this primes them to bottling up NTN and then doing the same thing with Lawrence.
Yeah.
Throw the house at him and just figure out, hey, we're now several years into this. You have a history of kind of crumpling when guys start coming from directions you're not planning on them coming from. Are you going to be able to do it? And yeah, the hook, it's not, the best disciplined gambling, but I think with a long tail towards Kansas City running away with this, there's times where you just got to lay the points, especially early in the season right now where the favorites are disproportionately hitting.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a little bit of the challenge too. You and I like to think of ourselves as disciplined gamblers. I love that word you used. I think it makes a lot of sense. But there's a lot of strategy involved in that. There is creating your own lines. There is, taking a look at matchups, trends. But at the end of the day, Vegas knows, right? And when I say they know, it means they're setting the lines so that they can just cover that juice. And so that hook is always in play. And sometimes, and especially at the beginning of the season, we as quote unquote smart gamblers or disciplined gamblers like to take that hook. But sometimes teams like the Eagles, who by all rights have not showed up the way that they should have in any of the first 4 games, but have covered every single one of them as favorites.
Yeah.
It's a little frustrating for the discipline. So there does come a point in time when you make the adjustment. And if you're playing every single game, so for those of you that don't know, Brandon and I play in a lot of pools, and a lot of the pools we have to pick are total weak pools of confidence top to bottom. So we technically really look and handicap every game every week. And it gives you a good idea of how these teams go. We're not just picking the top 5 or picking our favorites. We handicap every single game and looking at it, and we try to stay disciplined by doing that. If you don't stay disciplined, you're going to get wonky and you're going to lose your tail. This is one of those trends year to date that has proven for both of us to just be the opposite of what should be core discipline. So, in a simple example, this Chief one is a prime example, right? We think their defense is better. We think that the coordinators are better. We think that the design of the teams and how they run the ball and how Spagnuolo is going to stop the run and then pin their ears and put pressure on Lawrence, which is not his best way to play, just actually favors the Chiefs. And so that hook just doesn't come into play for our handicap. So just to give a
Yeah.
little extra color as to why,
No,
we
that's a
talk
great
one
way
way
to
about
work it out.
you try to stay disciplined until you know there's an edge.
Yeah. No, I think that's as long as you have a reason. And like you were saying, playing these pools where, and in one of the ones that we play in, we're going up against 4 dozen other guys. You start to get a picture of here's what a wide swath of people are thinking about when they are putting confidence points against the entire slate of games. And you can kind of get a mini view of where the averages are falling to kind of help you go, okay, I'm clearly not seeing something here that a bunch of other people are seeing, and help yourself dial in. And I think that this is one of those ones that it's just pointing in the right direction and it should help because I think that there's going to be a reasonable number of people who are off KC still.
Yeah.
They looked at it and they look at Baltimore and they go, yeah, Lamar got hurt and Henry just wasn't playing after he got bottled up a couple of times, basically. And they're at home and yada, yada, yada. And they'll just go back to being average next week. And I don't think that that's the way that this is set up to go. I went on the Sandman podcast this week and kind of saber rattled a little bit in a hot take about the Chiefs being back and got to go head to head in Stone Cold Locks against Pat and taking the Jaguars against me. So this will be a fun little competition Monday night, our podcast versus the boys over on Enter Sandman. So we'll see how
I know
that works
Bierman
out
has
for us.
no love for those Chiefs.
No, he sure doesn't.
We're We're gonna have to
Neither
put a
does
little
Pat.
stone cold wager on that, I guess. Holy cow.
That's not a bad idea.
Man, I don't know if those guys can come up with something that fast or not. They might move slow. You never know.
We'll see how it works out.
Hey, so I'm gonna take a little pause right here, Brandon, and just say that if any of you followed us all last season, you knew that we wrapped really our recording session with baseball and our previews for baseball and who we thought was going to be good.
Oh,
And I got to brag a
yeah.
little, man. Of all those picks, if you remember, we went through every division, and I said,
Uh-huh.
I put a little dollar sign next to the ones that I actually bet on. For the record, I bet on 8, and I won 6 of those plays because I bet on the White Sox twice. I lost the White
Whoops.
Sox twice. Every other one hit, come out profitable. So now I got more money to spend on Sandman games. But
Big
just want to say, if
kudos.
you follow our baseball previews in the spring, guys, listen to our over-unders. We might know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to go back and check mine and see how that worked out for me.
Yeah, that's fun stuff. So, hey, Brandon, let's talk about our Power Five. One thing that we're talking about doing that's going to change a little bit is we're going to actually start ranking. Sneak peek, here it comes. All 32 teams. We've made the decision that we're going to do it. It's not coming out this week. It may not come out next week, but within a couple weeks, you're going to start seeing the St. Louis Syndicate top power rankings for all the teams in the NFL. But this is our 5 for this week. Starting with the Lions, they flip-flop with the Bills. We both agree that this is necessary this week. Brandon, any details you want to share on that?
Yeah, I think, the elation of watching the Saints almost beat the Bills while, Cleveland went from giving Green Bay fits to coming to Detroit and Detroit ultimately handling that business just fine leads me to believe that Detroit's got to be the top team now.
Yeah.
As much as I kind of wanted to stand on a hill, those two coordinators leaving were going to drastically affect them. It seems that has not been the case so far, at least.
I would agree, and that just gives even more credence to the Dan Campbell philosophy. He set the culture on that team, and the team believes it. And while yes,
Yeah.
X's and O's are important, this will tell you that culture is probably more important. And anybody in business, Bezos, Trump. I know some of you guys don't like Trump. That's okay. But ultimately, these business leaders set a culture in their organizations, top to bottom, whether it's Starbucks or Microsoft or Apple or whatever. And Dan Campbell has set a culture in Detroit. And I kind of, if I really, really had my favorite choice outside of the Dallas Cowboys making the Super Bowl, I would love to see a Detroit Buffalo Super Bowl so that one of the teams that has not won a Super Bowl yet gets one, and both of those
Yeah.
teams would be deserving. I would be so happy to see a Detroit Buffalo Super Bowl. I probably would have a hard time betting against it because I'd be rooting for both teams.
No, that would be one of those over under bets
Yeah,
years for me for sure. Unless there was something significant that happened in the playoffs that really pointed one direction or the other. But I'm with you. As much as I can look down this list and go like, I don't believe in Philly, but they just keep winning. So they've got to stay in there because they're figuring out how to get it done. The two above them, even when they slip up, you can watch the plays and go, they have that quality where even when they aren't necessarily moving the ball well, they have discipline around. They aren't just doing random things where you just go like, what was the point of that second down play? Now, like you can see, like, okay, this is what we're trying to do. And it's cohesive all the way through the game. And that's what separates those teams from the other teams.
absolutely. And when we start publishing our power rankings, you'll actually see um, kind of where we're thinking from an adjustment perspective and how this affects the lines. But right now, today, both Buffalo and Detroit would be favored in a game against the Eagles, in our opinion. We'll call it neutral
Yeah.
site game. I think that probably the odds makers, if Buffalo played Philly, would have Philly at like -1.5, where we would probably have Buffalo at -1.5. But ultimately, those teams are all right there. And it's just until somebody proves otherwise, they're not there. Kansas City's back in after beating Baltimore. Um, Probably well deserved. Those of you haters of Kansas City, you're saying, well, the Chargers beat them. Yeah, but this is our power ranking and we get to pick. And so, what do they say when you're a kid? Tough noogies. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
tough
Yeah. Yeah.
noogies. It's our team. But Kansas City lost to the Chargers in week 1. Nobody had been playing in the preseason. They were in Brazil or South America or wherever they were. And
Yeah, Brazil. Yeah, 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 you're
Brazil.
right.
And ultimately, we're 4 weeks in, headed into week 5, and Kansas City's starting to hit their stride. Chargers just took a lump against the Jackson Jart Giants. The Jackson Dart Giants. Say that 5 times fast.
Right.
And ultimately, that's why we sit at the top 5 where we sit.
Yeah, I look at the Chiefs the same way that I look at Buffalo and Detroit, where you go, it's all about whether the outcome happens. The process is there. And then we watch them at Baltimore come to town, who, I honestly think if everybody's healthy, they're a top 3 team as well. But it wasn't their day. Some guys got banged up. But when you watch the offense, there's a plan the entire time, and there's no wasted movement. And when that long ball starts coming back like it has the last 2 weeks, you go, this is going to add to significant variance. And it's really going to stretch those tails out. And it's going to be hard to go, hey, if these guys get 2 or 3 explosive plays a game, that's another 7, 9, 13 points that are going to put real pressure that's going to allow Spagnuolo to dial up blitzes and make life hard for the offense. And it's going to
Yeah,
kind of create that waterfall from there. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it, and why I think
I
that,
agree.
the last 2 weeks have kind of shown that we're now moving back in the right direction.
And honestly, was last week the first week Worthy was back? Wait till Rice gets back. This
Yeah.
thing's just
Yeah.
starting.
No,
The
there's
engine's just starting to rev.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think we'll see them continue to climb here, starting with, beating Jacksonville with some space in the
Yep,
score.
absolutely. Well, hey, it's your favorite time, my favorite time. It is Survivor time. Listen, guys, I don't know if you've been sleeping under a rock lately, but the Syndicate is running 18-2 for top plays, safe plays, and our plays, along with the risk reward plays. I mean, when you take these 4 things, top plays, safe plays, risk reward plays, our plays, we're covering at an 18-2 spread. Now, I understand you guys are going to go, well, you guys pick the same teams every week. Yes and no. We're giving you the top play every week. We're giving you the safe play every week, but we're still alive in our pools, and our risk rewards
Yeah,
are covering. And we're going to put our money where our
yeah,
mouth is this week. I want you guys to pay close attention as we get through our plays of the week. Top play, Detroit Lions. Brandon, they're the highest percentage team on the page.
yeah, yeah. Even on the road, they are over 10 points against Cincinnati. And, as much as I hate taking road teams for this, for just the opportunity that it can get away from you, I can't disagree that I don't see a game script that puts Cincinnati over top of Detroit this week.
No, I totally agree with that. Um, Probably the safest play too, but definitely the top play of the week. Um, while we're talking about top plays of the week, those of you that didn't take our advice, there's been 211 cut, Brandon, in the Sandman Survivor Pool. 422 survive. They must be listening to our podcast.
Yeah, we're making some nice progress here. We almost got through with New Orleans there and chopped off, a quarter of the
140. That would have
league all in one shot. Like that would have been very 2024. Um,
been Cincinnati Bengals
what
jump.
was it? Well, Cincinnati twice. Cincinnati twice got everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been quite the quite the outcome when I didn't even have that on the TV. I had the
Mm.
other 6 games up because I went like they're liable to not even New Orleans is liable to not even cover. And then all of a sudden I look down and they're 2 points behind and I go, okay, we got to get this up on the TV. Like this could be giant for everybody that didn't take Buffalo. So yeah, hopefully we can eventually get some of these top plays to fall on weeks that each person individually wants somebody else to be the person that's getting jammed up on the top and the safe plays, but that will help us get down to a manageable number for later in the season where we can kind of start actually going head to head a little bit.
Yeah, agreed. Now this safe play, the safe play is Buffalo. I mean, are we surprised about that?
No, they're at home. I the I like New England to cover, right? Like we're kind of going down the same road that I had with Houston last week,
Mhm.
where you went like, all right, maybe Tennessee figures out a way to cover. And
Oh,
I kind of the same way that this week that like New England's going in there. They've played a couple of consistent games. They seem to be getting it together. They sometimes give Buffalo fits at home, but I can't imagine having that level of trouble 2 weeks in a row for Buffalo.
yeah,
So I think safe play is the way to go with this.
yeah, absolutely. So we've got a risk reward play that we're going to show you right now. The Arizona Cardinals. So we don't think that these Arizona Cardinals have many other opportunities throughout the season that they could be played against, right? They've got Tennessee coming to town. And if you haven't noticed on our slides, take a look now. We've changed our slide from the team playing New Orleans to the team playing Tennessee because New Orleans put up such a good fight last week against Buffalo, and Tennessee just doesn't seem interested in playing football at the moment. I almost feel bad for Cam Ward, except the kid's got to learn how to take something off his fastball, or his receivers are going to all have broken hands and nobody's going to ever catch anything for him.
Well, it's
Even
true,
Brett
and
Favre
like
learned how to have touch.
the coaches need to keep them like they gave up.
Yeah.
They were running the ball down 2 touchdowns, in the fourth quarter. Like you can't just pack it in, especially when you're this young of a team. This very much leads back to, kind of what I blasted Miami for at the beginning of the season, where you just showed up and you weren't ready to play. And New Orleans is now, I'd call it 3 weeks in a row, showed up ready to play
Yes.
at the very least. They don't have a lot of talent. They're probably going to lose most of their games,
Yeah.
but they're motivated. They're taking opportunities when they get it, and they're putting it on teams. And so yeah, I'm completely in agreement that it's time to move Tennessee down to the bottom of the list and start highlighting, who's, getting a free-ish roll at a win this week.
And realistically, Arizona doesn't have very many opportunities left on their schedule. They play in the West, which is tough. Not until week 15 do they play at Houston. They really, and in between there, they've got like Indianapolis and Green Bay and Dallas. No real easy wins for Arizona on the page. This could be the time to play them in a risk reward scenario.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
we went ahead and popped one more risk reward out there, and we want to go ahead and show that to you guys. It is the Minnesota Vikings. Now, that's going to coincide also with our plays, but the Minnesota Vikings have kind of a unique situation where they're set up right now, Brandon. They stayed over in Europe after their loss to Pittsburgh. While not in the same country, they're still not traveling very far. I mean, I think it's like traveling from Texas to Oklahoma. But at the end of the day, they have time to prepare, have a full week of practice in, and they're off the jitters of traveling across the country. They're able to establish, get their sleep patterns in check. And incoming to them is the Cleveland Browns. Now we know the Cleveland Browns are, just beat the Packers. They got popped by the Lions, but they decided that now was the time to change quarterbacks. We're going to go with rookie Dylan Gabriel as we travel across the big pond into Europe for his first career NFL start. This might be a good risk reward play playing against those Minnesota Vikings.
Playing with the Minnesota Vikings, right?
Yeah, staying with Minnesota.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a little too rich for my blood. Um, there may be an opportunity as we kind of go into the weekend. There's a couple of things hanging out there. We all talked about last year that playing Detroit didn't go good for you the next week. That hasn't really panned out this year so far, but they had a nice slog last week against Detroit, and now, like you said, they're going across the pond, and the weather doesn't look like it's necessarily going to be perfect over there. So you roll a rookie out. Basically the only thing that you're scared of is Cleveland's defense taking advantage of Wentz and what he's capable of doing.
Yep.
Everything else is pointing towards Minnesota being able to get this done. So,
Yep.
Like you said, if you haven't used them yet, this is a pretty good spot to use them mathematically. And I think there's a lot of stuff, kind of tailwind, pushing them in the right direction.
Yeah, mathematically, they're after Cleveland, they get a bye next week, and then it's Philly, at the Chargers, at Detroit, Baltimore. So they're not looking good to play anytime soon. This is kind of that spot. Brandon, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm taking the Minnesota Vikings in the Sandman play.
Perfect.
I'm going to be sweating
I'm going to go
bullets.
with Indy.
I'm going to sweat bullets before church. That way, with all my cussing and stomping around, if they lose, I can go and try to get square before the afternoon games start.
Well, I'm gonna follow up your morning pick with a noon pick, and I'm gonna go with Indy. I think, even though they lost last week, it was kind of a very, acute couple of failures that stopped them from at least being able to cover. Maybe they don't win either which way, but to finally stumble and take a loss after having a hot first 3 weeks. I think coming back home and having Vegas come there, who just hasn't figured out an identity yet. Like, Genty's warming up, but Bowers just hasn't been used very much. Their defense really hasn't gotten rolling. I think that this is a pretty clean place, unless you want to save them for Tennessee coming to town in a couple weeks. This is kind of the peak spot to grab Indy. So that's where I'm leaning right now. Probably going to stick with it. And I think that gets us through week 5.
Outstanding. So there you go, guys. We're not playing the top play or the safe play. We're taking our game out on a risk, because if you're going to win this thing, you've got to actually take a chance. Just for the record, the team playing Tennessee is those Arizona Cardinals.
Arizona.
And if you were curious, New Orleans does have those Giants with Jackson Dart coming to see him. So I don't know if that's something that interests you or not, but we are going to at least remind you of that.
Yeah, that feels very coin flippy. I'd like to believe in New Orleans going into that, but you just never know when you get these rookie quarterbacks coming in there and they start getting their legs under them.
Yeah, you just don't know. Don't know. All right, guys, that's it for this week. I'm Nate. He's Brandon. We're the St. Louis Syndicate. Good luck with your picks.
Cheers.